Good morning. Well, we are all aware that Caesar's wife must be above suspicion. And the political leaders, the heads of the government, the heads of the state, have always got to be above suspicion. A canker of suspicion destroys their image and creates such a domino effect that is detrimental to the psychological, mental, and economic health of the country. We are all aware that integrity is extremely important. But fiscal responsibility, fiscal accountability is extremely important. Nothing hurts a nation except when its leaders indulge in an action that is suspicious, that is fraught with danger, that is fraught with some semblance of hanky-panky. It might be a very honest effort of their own part. But if they show lack of judgment, lack of discrimination, and lack of control on the fiscal affairs, there is something wrong somewhere. Can you imagine the Prime Minister of a country, our country, Canada, spending more in 1 month on travel alone than the former Prime Minister Stephen Harper spent in entire 4 years? What Harper spent between 2011 to 2014 was less than what Justin Trudeau spent in just the month of February. Shocked. That's not enough. If you recollect, Harper had gone to watch a hockey match in New York, and as per law, no Prime Minister is supposed to travel in a commercial flight because of the security reasons, and very justified. And since the flight was going, he took his daughter along with him, and the press raised such a noise, the media was bursting that this is unfair, and then Harper quietly paid the fare of his young daughter. Well, I appreciate it. Why should the voters pay for the travel of the daughter of the Prime Minister? And Prime Minister Harper understood it, and he did it. And can you believe Prime Minister Justin has paid economy fare for taking his wife, his children, and nannies, only economy fare, to the vacation lands in Caribbean? But then that's not enough. He wants to talk to Notley, the chief premier of Alberta, so that there can be some arrangement, political arrangement or whatever. And he sends his Challenger, the personal aircraft of the Prime Minister, to Edmonton to bring her back. So it goes empty, picks her up, brings her, again takes her back and comes back empty. Now, the Premier is not supposed to use the Prime Minister's plane, but he uses it. And it makes 2 trips empty. It costs $14,400 per hour to fly this aeroplane. Under what law was this used to bring that? Well, some of them you might say that he also sent Justin Harper to Edmonton in his plane and nobody cribbed. Well, that was a matter of courtesy one time. Now, if it had been one time exception, I could have understood it. The Secretary General of United Nations had to come to Canada, and he has his own aircraft. But the Prime Minister sends the Challenger to New York to pick him up. a journey of 2.5 hours or 3 hours, goes empty, brings him to Ottawa, then sends it back to New York and comes back empty. If the Secretary General is coming, no other country ever sends its aircraft to bring the Secretary General. No other country. Justin Trudeau created a history, and history at my cost, at your cost. The total expenditure in February exceeded $1 million only on that travel. Now I'll come to another side. We had some time back said that in his trip to London they had used over $10,000 on drinks alone. You remember Harper had thrown out Bev order for ordering a $16 glass of orange juice. So on one side, one glass of orange juice means you are kicked out, not from the cabinet post, but also from being an MP, from the caucus and everything. Your career is finished. And here they are drinking 32 bottles of wine in one night at a cost borne by me. Another thing. Harper had gone to Russia, stayed in St. Petersburg, spent $0 on the accommodation, and total expenditure was $90 apart from the travel. Justin Trudeau comes to Toronto and in one night spends $2,000 on the accommodation. And that's not what I'm saying, that's what I read in the global news. They reported it. Justin Trudeau's office says, no, it was not $2,000, it was $1,100. Why even $1,100? When the country is in a meltdown position, when the economy is not that strong, one. When more than 71,000 jobs have been lost, does it behove the Prime Minister to spend money like a profligate? I'm sure you would agree that it does not. I am all for the prestige and the security of the Prime Minister. He is my Prime Minister. I want him to be protected. I want him to project an aura that will increase, enhance the prestige and the power of my country. I do not grudge anything. But I do grudge the waste of money. Imagine 3 years of spending on one side and 1 month spending on the other side. You see, let's not forget ever that water always flows from top to bottom. When the people say that the Prime Minister is not careful, when the people watch that the Prime Minister is careless and is more a spendthrift, I wouldn't call him a waster as yet, but he's spendthrift. And he's spendthrift not with his own money, but with my money and your money. Then that message travels down. And the message says, well, if the Prime Minister can do it, why not me? Then the total upsurge is there, upsurge of greed, of avarice, of trying to take benefit from your position of power. And ultimately who suffers? It is the country which suffers. It suffers in diverse ways. A, economic wastage is there. B, psychologically there is an atmosphere, an environment of corruption and spendthriftiness. The sense of frugality and dignity is gone. You know, there's always a certain poise, certain dignity regarding the restraint in spending the other's money. After all, they are the trustees of the government, of the people. And this is betraying the trust. If somebody was to do it in the private sector, that CEO would be hauled up on the burning coals. Look, allied to this is the problem of the so-called media. They were all the time shouting from the housetops about Prime Minister Harper's daughter being there, even after he had paid her money. And now they are dumb, they are deaf, they are mute. Why? Is it because they want that whatever the liberal government does should be condoned? If that is so, then it is a sad commentary on the so-called fair, impartial media. It is a sad commentary on investigative journalism. It's a slur to call it the fourth estate. It is nothing more than lapdogs of the government in power. And they have sold themselves for their self-interest, and they are not serving the interest of the country to make the people aware of the reality. On the other side, the whole economic atmosphere is vitiated. As I said earlier, when the top is wrong, I don't call it bad as yet, but when they are in the wrong, then that wrong travels downwards, and the domino effect is of such a nature that the whole country suffers. It's incumbent on the Prime Minister and any leader to set up an example. I was extremely happy the other day when I read that in India, one minister who has been vilified a lot, who has been criticized a lot, Smriti Irani, goes to Starbucks, not with the security, stands in a queue, places an order, waits for a cup of coffee, takes a cup of coffee and walks out as an ordinary citizen. That's what I expect people to be. And that's what I have been seeing. I've interacted with the prime ministers and the presidents for over 50 years. And I've seen that wherever the prime ministers have been honest, they have been loved with the people. Wherever, and honesty only means that they may not be dishonest, but if they are spendthrift, people don't like it, because you are paying ducks and drakes with the hard-earned taxpayers' money. I've seen the prime ministers like Lal Bahadur Shastri, who were angry with his wife, because she had ordered saris which he couldn't afford on his salary. And I have seen the prime ministers who have been Spartan. I mean, despite all the differences with Prime Minister Morarji Desai, I would say that he was a man of sterling probity and honesty. His son may not have been, but he was. And I have seen the prime ministers and the premiers who will go out of the way to make a fast buck and a faster buck. Justin Trudeau is possibly inexperienced. Possibly his handlers and advisors are inefficient, callous, and maybe having their own interest in mind, and they are not guiding him properly. No prime minister acts by himself. He is always advised by the bureaucrats and by his kitchen cabinet, what we call it in India. This cabinet always tells the prime minister in a very dignified tone, "Sir, let's not do this. The implications can be wrong." It sends the wrong message. That means either the prime minister doesn't use his own brain, and he's an impetuous young man. Maybe he doesn't know it. But the mandarins sitting over in Ottawa, what are they doing? And why is the press absolutely stricken, dumb, deaf, paralyzed? This thing is going from bad to worse. I was shocked when this revelation came to me. And I said that we must think about it. Does it behove the Prime Minister to behave like a rock star. Okay, in personal life you can be anything. But a prime minister is a prime minister. And secondly, does it behove the prime minister to be spendthrift with the taxpayers' money just for the sake of his political gain, his personal comfort, and his burning desire to be counted as a good guy? I would not mind the prime minister being deemed an extremely repugnant person, provided he can protect my country and projects his image, which Harper did, which Churchill did. Now, if I look at the history of the people who have really made mark in the history are the people who were frugal, the people who were very careful, people who were financially accountable and fiscally responsible. Abe Lincoln. My head bows to him. I talked already of Lal Bahadur Shastri. Mrs. Gandhi, yes, she was very careful about spending the public money. Later on there were some issues, but by herself she did not take a single penny on her own for her own comfort. Morarji Desai, with all my political differences, I'll say I admire that man's personal financial integrity. But there were people like Chandrasekhar in India. There were people here, present Prime Minister included, who pay ducks and drakes with my fund and your fund. Financial and fiscal responsibility, fiduciary discipline is a hallmark of efficient administration. It is a hallmark of capabilities and responsibilities. And the Prime Minister or any other public servant who is not financially responsible, who is not fiduciary accountable, is a sad comment on that country. I hope the message goes home. I hope you also wake up and tell the government this is not acceptable. Enough is enough. Thank you.